Hi everyone, it's Chenzo from Reality Art Pod, here to talk about Survivor Season 47, Episode 11, titled Flipping the Win Switch. Last week on Survivor, after Kyle won his 4th individual immunity, everyone except Sue voted Gabe out of the game. Before I dive in, I put a link in the description to my playlist where you can catch up on my previous recaps. If you like the content, consider liking and subscribing. But let's dive into it. The players return to camp, where Kyle feels bad for the Gabe vote and feels like he has to win out for the rest of the game. Sue is devastated by the vote and feels betrayed by Caroline, but is still coming for Kyle's ass, especially now to get revenge for Gabe. In the morning on day 19, Sue continues to mourn the loss of Gabe and is seemingly using the Fijian dirt to recreate the camouflage from Predator. New strategy: if they can't see you, they can't vote you out. Caroline pulls Sue aside and tells Sue that she felt that Gabe was controlling her game. She gets emotional, saying this is her life stream. She doesn't want to let herself down, opening up to us about her lifelong struggle with ADHD, which was a big growth moment for Caroline's character on the show. This mends fences with Sue, and Sue once again feels like Caroline is her #1 ally. A group of Rachel, Andy, Sue, Caroline, and Teeny gather at the well and declare themselves the Underdog Alliance, banding together against jury threats Sam, Genevieve, and Kyle. The other three, who I'll call overdogs, are left to agree that they need to work together. These three are really highlighted here as they're all knocking on heaven's door in the game. Genevieve is hesitant to trust anyone. She still feels guilty about betraying Keyshawn and doesn't want to get too close to anyone out of fear of hurting them in the same way she hurt him. Sam tells us that his strategy post-Sierra has been just to be honest with people. He feels like it's been working well for him. Kyle tells us he started the game off an emotional player, but now he's channeling his time in foster care and in systems where he had to act out of character to survive. He tells us he's capable of lying and deceiving. Hard pivot from those suffering to Andy, who feels like he's connected to everyone in the game and is going to use them as pieces to pave his own way to victory. A boat then shows up with the clue that if they can't agree on one person to go on a journey, they'll draw rocks to settle the score. Genevieve, Sue, Rachel, and Sam step up to draw rocks, and Rachel draws the purple rock, sending Rachel on the journey. Rachel is taken to a floating platform with a puzzle where she needs to sort colored balls to unlock an advantage. There are weights falling into the ocean that are tied together, which are basically a timer. This is really just a race against time that looks really easy. If you can nail it and not make big mistakes, anyone should be able to complete this. Rachel gets started, and I'll be honest, the unspooling rope as a timer is so much more stressful than an hourglass because Rachel can't really get a feel of how much time she has. This challenge looks really fun, and Rachel ends up winning the advantage. Her advantage is she can block a vote at Tribal, where a player of her choice will find out at the urn that they have no vote and they won't know who did it. She can use it until final 6. Rachel also still has an idol. When she gets back to camp, Rachel tells everyone the true story about the puzzle she had to complete, but she lies to the overdogs and tells them that they lost the challenge and lost her vote. Sam doesn't even believe her story about the puzzle. Rachel tells Sue and Caroline the truth about the advantage, and Sue tells Rachel how Gabe revealed his beware advantage to her in the beginning and won over her loyalty. So Rachel has won over Sue with this truth bomb, and she knows it, and Caroline is loving that Rachel is becoming a threat over her in the game. Rachel also tells Andy and Teeny the truth, with Teeny seeming to see this trio as her ideal final 3. Genevieve approaches Rachel and suggests that they target Andy or Sue, which was a big mistake from Jenny because Rachel wants Jenny gone. Rachel quickly rats Genevieve out to Andy. At this point, Genevieve has Keyshawn to herself. They head to the immunity challenge, where Jeff quickly gives Kyle the floor to talk about his family. Sue gets emotional with self-pride as well. Andy makes a big speech about the journey they've all made since his breakdown in the premiere. Then Jeff takes the necklace cause that thing's up for grabs. For their challenge, they need to balance a wobbling table with a rope as they spell the word immunity brick by balance brick. They get started. This looks like one of the hardest challenges in Survivor. It's one you can't really practice for. There's no real skill involved besides patience and not moving too fast, and it's probably so easy to get pissed off. Caroline is first to drop, and it's so me getting pissed off and cussing, which starts the trend of people dropping their blocks. I can tell you how this challenge is going to go on any given season. Some players will get to a fast lead. Those are the players who are naturally good at the challenge. They'll get a little confident and drop. That's Sam, Genevieve, Kyle, and Rachel, leaving inevitably the slower players who haven't dropped but are moving really slowly and could win if the pressure doesn't get to them, but the pressure will get to them. That's Teeny and Sue. So they drop, and eventually it comes back down to Rachel and Kyle, and Miss Rachel pulls through and wins individual immunity, shouting out her husband, who would encourage her to be patient in the challenge. Back at camp, the obvious vote off is Kyle. Sue tells us she's been
drooling.
but Rachel tells us she's seeing this as a potential opportunity to target Genevieve. Sam would like to keep Kyle, but doesn't feel like they can get the votes to keep him. Andy chats with Kyle and wants to keep him, saying he wants to start.
If I want to start flipping the win switch, I have kind of maybe other ideas.
Oop, he said the thing, and now this is getting out of hand. Andy has said the episode title 4 times in a row. In an effort to flip the vote against Genevieve, Andy explains to the group that Kyle only has a 6.25% chance of winning the rest of the immunities. Caroline thinks the stats argument is baloney and tells us if she goes behind Sue's back again, it could ruin their relationship further. So they head to tribal council where they debate the definition of the term threat, with Kyle downplaying his social game. Genevieve acknowledges that she's a strategic threat and that she can't do anything to change that label. Kyle encourages the group to have a crowd-pleasing moment and keep him around, which seems to tickle Jeff. It's clear that nobody's mind is being changed by this spirited conversation. Jeff acknowledges Genevieve's silence. She's obviously very down and discouraged. Caroline gasses Jenny up by calling her a great player and quoting her, and Genevieve discusses her struggles again, dealing with the emotional aftermath of the Keyshawn vote. They get to the votes, no advantages are played, and Kyle is voted out by a vote of 6 to 1 to 1. Kyle voted for Teeny, Andy voted for Genevieve, and everyone else voted for Kyle. He's voted out with a big smile, with Gabe calling him a hero on the way out. So we say goodbye to Kyle here, who came into the season on the Tuku tribe, who only went to tribal council once thanks to his strength and challenges. In that one tribal, he lost his #1 ally in TK and was put on the bottom of the power structure, with Sue especially having it out from him from the very beginning. In retrospect, I don't really understand what Sue meant when she says that Kyle reminds her of guys in her industry, because she made it seem like he was a real asshole pig, but now that we've seen his full arc, it's clear that he's nothing of the sort. He's got consistent content from the premiere about his story growing up in foster care, having a family of his own, and week after week, especially lately, after every immunity challenge, Jeff passes the mic to Kyle to shout out his family. He even did it before this week's challenge, just in case. Through all of this, Kyle comes across as a really positive character, with Gabe calling him a hero, and him getting a big hug from Jeff in a predictable but somehow tear-jerking vote-off. I think if there's a new era heroes vs villains, I'd love to see the grudge match round 2 between hero Kyle and villain Sue. Moving on to my player of the episode award, and I know I'm probably gonna get crap for giving Kyle my Pote award last week, and he was voted out this week. Ultimately, I'm gonna give it to Rachel. Rachel started the episode by quickly playing damage control around camp with Sue. She joined up with the underdogs, and I think all of the underdogs and Sam had a pretty good episode this week, but Rachel then steps it up on the journey to prevent the overdogs from getting an advantage, and she wins the advantage. She was wise with sharing the information and gets herself into 2 solid groups of 3 within the underdogs. Then she wins the immunity that takes out Kyle, making her kind of a dragon slayer, which is pretty cool. The player I think is in danger once again is Genevieve. She seems pretty beaten down by the game and is backed into a corner with not really any resources to save herself besides immunity challenges. She's burned so many bridges, and this episode she scorned Andy, who seemed kind of open to helping her in the past. I think the most likely outcome next week is Andy and Rachel finally convincing Sue and Caroline to repay the favor from the Kyle vote and do the Jenny vote next week. But that's all I have to say about this episode. Let me know in the comments what you thought. If you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing, and thank you to all of you for helping me to get to my 5,000 subscriber goal. I'll be back next week with more Survivor. I don't think I've listened to the Wicked soundtrack in the last hour, so I'm gonna go. Have a nice weekend. Bye!